That's been the number one thing that I've heard so far about the finale from even just amongst like the inner group is the amount of Kleenex required to get through it.
There's a huge responsibility in ending this series as an actor, as a producer, and now also as a director. And to end it in such a beautiful, I would argue, kind of quiet way in that those final moments of her just back in that space, starting to write her book in her head, delivering the voiceover. I know that is coming from the script, but I am wondering from the directorial and the actor point of view, when you're ending the show there, what you feel like you have to do emotionally to leave everybody on kind of a hopeful note, maybe, or kind of we've taken you through so much trauma, rage, action, and now we're going to let you breathe.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it better than I can. I do think it's exactly that with nine, which is such a big episode, it's very explosive. Literally, it's, you know, it has all the bells and whistles and it has all of the twists and turns and has that big, twist at the end, of course. And then I do feel like 10 is this much quieter, sweeter, hopeful episode, which I love. I think I love the pair of them. I think they go really well together. I don't think either would work as well without the other one. So I do think they sort of go as a bit of a set. It's funny because one of the things I love about television and the format so much, and the reason why I just keep gravitating towards it and then having a very fortunate thing happen where I do get to do a show for 6 seasons, 7 seasons, which doesn't always happen. Um, you don't have to think too much about how that kind of thing feels,
Mm.
so just like as an actor at the end, and I mean, as a director as well, because they're so intertwined, like it's very difficult for me to separate the two things. They're very, very close together for me. I just everything that I mean, it was so meta, I guess is the word, everything. I hadn't been back to the Waterford house in however many years it has been since June has been there. Whatever was the last scene we shot there was less. I don't go visit the house. I'm not like, what, let's take a trip down memory lane and go to this random neighborhood. So I hadn't been back there. So of course, when I went back there, it was to scout. Um, but I know how that felt, and I was able to then carry it into the scene. And then, there's a lot of amazing memories, and there's also a lot of complicated memories of being, very cold and it being very late at night and things like that. Not quite as complicated as June's memories.
Maybe could work for how you played June in moments.
Bit of a stretch, but like, yes, I can get there. But definitely the positivity and the hopefulness of walking back into that room. And I didn't have to think too much about how June would feel because I felt all of the things. Like there had been so much that had happened in that room. And I was so happy to be back in a better place and in a place where I you know, was ready to kind of bring this story to a close at the same time that June is sort of starting to tell it. And yeah, it just doesn't require a lot of thinking, honestly, which is why I love this format. Like, no, I'm just gonna say you don't get that unless you spend 9 years doing something. You're not gonna get that in 3 months or 4 months. It takes all of that time to feel that when you walk back into that room. And I love that. There's something very immersive about it.
Like the very last thing we hear is a name I never thought we'd hear again. Like saying, I was this person of this other person. Are there any complicated feelings around that?
I think it's the same thing that she talks about with Luke and she talks about with her mom, where she's like, no one wants to hear this. I've already told this story. And both of them, her mom points out that she needs to tell it for her daughters. And Luke points out that she needs to talk about the good things, the friendship and the love. Nick, Lawrence, all of the people that she met, the things that affected her deeply, not just the negative things. So she has to go back to the beginning and she has to tell the whole story. And it started as Offred. Do you know that that is the original voiceover?
No, I was
Yeah.
going to ask if you had how much you had to redo because I thought some of it was directly from Margaret and then some of it was from the writers of the show. And so I assumed there were changes made.
I had this idea that if I said it the right way in the right cadence and did it the way I did it before, we could actually use the original voiceover in my mouth. But I forgot I wanted to do that until 10 minutes before. Like we was literally setting up the shot. And so I got on Hulu on my phone and I pay for, I think it's 17.99. It's getting very,
It's
getting very expensive.
crazy.
No ads. And I got on Hulu and I went to the end of the episode and I listened to it and I just listened to it over and over and over again and memorized it in the cadence so that if we wanted to do that at the end, we could. And then it wasn't until we got into this post sound world and that section of our post process that we tried to do it and it worked, which was incredible. There was only one part that was like slightly off that I had to do like a little ADR to kind of massage it. But there was something about the quality of using the original voiceover, especially when she says, "My name is Alfred," that was so creepy. And so even if you like don't know it, there's something subconscious, I think, that happens. So I was very proud of that. And our post sound department did an incredible job of making that work.
I do want to back up because you mentioned Nick, you mentioned Lawrence. I do want to talk about them. Kind of backing up to the end of episode 9 because I thought it was such a great choice to end 9 looking at you, not looking at the plane exploding because there's so many complicated emotions that we always see on your face, but like in that moment, especially losing these two people. And I'm curious if it was kind of written that way or if that was a choice that you made.
God, sometimes these things have existed a certain way for so long that like I don't remember how it was originally. It was a mutual decision, whether or not it was on the page or not. I did want to make sure that we didn't see the actual explosion because it kind of cheapens it when that happens. Like, first of all, it's a really difficult thing to make look good. And it just felt like it was going to be all about that then. And it's not about that. It's about what she's feeling in that moment, right? And I think it's so much creepier and more sad as well if you don't see it and you're just waiting, and then finally it happened. You know it's going to happen any second, and finally it happens. And I did talk to Eric about it, and he was completely on board with it and was like, yes, absolutely, we should not see the explosion, absolutely. So it was a very mutual decision.
Well, part of the reason I'm asking is because there's so much, even in the flashbacks between June and Nick, it seems like there's so much sadness in like what he has turned into and what their relationship has become. And I do wonder when you look at the end of the show, how much you felt like June had to let go of anger and then of sadness in order to move on.
I mean, I don't think she's let go of it yet. Like, I don't think it's over yet. That's one of the reasons why I love the end so much is I think there are very obvious ways that we could have ended it that would have tied things up in a bow and made you feel like, and that's the end of the Handmaid's Tale. Good luck, everybody. But that's not life. It's not what Margaret wrote. Margaret wrote this book that was before the Testaments had this incredibly vague cliffhanger ending that was infuriating. And so I think in the tradition of the book, we wanted to have that as well. And it feels like there's a continuing of the story. It just doesn't feel like she's done yet.
But that then also leads us as the audience to, I feel like, wonder when will she pop into the Testaments, which is not necessarily something you may want, or do you want?
I mean, look, I've said this before, like I know I am very open about the fact that like I would totally do a season 7 of Handmaid's Tale. We're not, by the way. It's not happening.
I know.
But I am very like I love working on this show so much and I love the story and I love the characters and I love my character with the other characters. So that's something that I would not ever turn my back on. And I love playing June. I love that character. I admire her. She inspires me. I think she's so interesting. So I would love to play her again. I'm not going to lie to you. Of course I would. Can't tell you whether or not I do.
No, I know. We don't want to spoil it anyway, but I just feel like I will be watching being like, I feel like she'll turn up. But looking at also, you know, when I asked the question about anger, I also was thinking about Serena in that moment because you does say she forgives her. And the cynical part of me feels like maybe she didn't fully mean it and she's just saying it to close the book or to give Serena what she needs. And so I wanted to talk to you about the truth in that moment and how you found that line of like, was it enough that she gave up the plan and that's enough for her to actually forgive her? Where are those feelings?
Very good question. And I do like talking about it because I have thought about it. I think that a couple things. One, it doesn't really matter to June whether or not she forgives her, much as it matters to Serena. So it's kind of one of those things where it's another reason why I really love June and admire her is because she is brave enough to know and be able to make the move of like, this is something that I'm going to give to you because you need this more than I need it and more than I need to not do it. And it's an incredible quality in June. I don't know if she can ever forgive anyone for what Serena did, but it's complicated, you know? She did say yes to getting Nicole out, you know, baby Holly. She did do that. She has done things that have helped. I do think that no one knows or understands Serena the way June does. And with that understanding can come forgiveness and can come a granting of grace to Serena. I also think, though, the other thing I wanted to say about it is that it's not for her, it's for Noah.
Okay.
It's for Noah. June knows that Noah needs a mother who is not carrying that around. And so it's for him.
There's another piece of this season, especially the end of the season, that I will say I was surprised by the amount of religious speak, the amount of like serious, nobody's mocking it, like comes from all these characters, comes from Emily, comes from you. Like I don't know exactly how I want to phrase this question, but I guess the bottom line of the question is really how much faith June can even have at the end of this experience. And when she is saying certain things, especially in conversations with like Emily or even more a few episodes back, or when she's praying, when they all think she's going to be hanged, how much of it is genuine? I still have this faith versus I'm saying it because of look who I'm saying it to.
Definitely the former. I mean, she's always been like that, June. It was something that we talked about, me and Bruce, in the first season because I noticed it.
Mm-hmm. I just didn't think it would still be here now. That's what's so interesting.
After all these years, I know it's true. But I think that's, again, kind of part of June's bravery and intelligence because she can differentiate between faith and believing in something and believing in something bigger than you and all of the good things about that and the strength that it gives you and what Gilead has done with their idea of quote unquote faith, you know what I mean? Or religion. Like it's like, and she can differentiate between the two. I mean, we don't even want to go down that path, like, because that is like a very big conversation. But I do think that that's a huge part of this show. And it's one of the things that like Bruce and I have always talked about. And it's always been really important to us to make sure that we are not, as a show and and I think we get this from the book as well, like we're not saying it's all bad, but like
what they did with it.
And what they have used it, like they've like used it in vain, you know what I mean? They've used it to do things to serve their own purposes. And as Margaret says, it becomes about power, nothing else, right? So I think it's interesting too. I mean, there's some like I don't tend to say praise be a lot because I feel like that feels Gilead to me. So there have been times I've taken that out because I feel like that feels wrong to me. But yeah, the other stuff, it's a very conscious thing, very conscious choice.
I do want to look at that scene in 9, though, where like we as the audience know you're not going to die, but nobody there knew exactly how it would play out. I want to talk about walking that line of like there is this very serious prayer that you then turn into such a war cry. And at what point, and maybe this is just the way it's written, but at what point did you say this is the right moment for my voice to change? This is the right moment where maybe I'm seeing people in the crowd realizing like we're going to be okay. Well, we assume we're going to be okay. That's sort of how you worked that out, both as an actor and as a director, because there's so many parts to that scene.
It's definitely just written that way. Like there's a very clear moment where what she's saying shifts.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like I don't think about these things too much. Like I tend to just do them, and there was just no way, there was no other way that I saw it. Like it was just the way that I saw it. And I think that's what has kind of, it's what has made my transition to being a director so fun, is like as an actor I've always done that. I've always like seen things a certain way, and I've seen them from the camera's point of view. I've been able to step outside of myself and see what the audience sees, and that's what you're doing as a director, you know. So I just always saw it that way. I just did. It was never really a lot of thought put into it, honestly. Of course, there's all that practical stuff, but as far as like what it's going to look like on the screen to you, that's just something that kind of I see on the page.
You weren't in the rig though, right? That was always a stunt person.
No, I was in the rig up until well, up in the air when it's like high. That's Jen, my stunt.
Okay.
Absolutely. No, that's Jen, who's been my stunt woman for many years. She's incredible. No. I have no intention of going up there and being a hero. I mean, I love doing fight stuff. I love like doing the training for that, but there was no time to do training on this. It's not happening. So unless something feels like really safe, which of course requires a fair amount of practice and training, I'm going to leave it to the professionals. I did wear, obviously, in the close-up.
Yeah.
Where I get lifted out, and I did the one that's the close-up of me in the air, but she did like one from behind and all of that. Yeah.
When you talk about you as a show, collectively, the show talks a lot about the clothes and the importance. I think that scene also like really reminds everybody like, oh, these women are not women to these people. And there's so many moments where in the finale, to me, it felt like when June is in regular clothes, she doesn't have the same purpose that she had when she was on a mission, disguising herself or not. And there is that scene where she's burning the Handmaid's outfit. So I'm curious what that felt like. I mean, you might disagree with me totally, which is fine, but I'm curious if that scene felt differently given where she was, knowing like she's not really done. She just has to do it a different way.
I think it is something that she needs to do in order to move on in a different way. Like she has to fight a different battle now. And I think that there is something symbolic in that she needs to do. At the same time, like there have been so many times when I have thought it was going to be the last time I would wear that, you know? And so I would just never say never. Like it's just, I haven't worn it since then. That's the honest truth. But like, I just feel like it's never over. I feel like it's never, I always think it's the end of it, and then I end up wearing it again. So I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. I mean, it's also like, it's true. Like she's not done. She has that scene with her daughter where she's like, I have to leave you. Like I have other things to do. And like, we all understand it. I will say that scene hits harder when you realize like, well, she's leaving her daughter with her mother. There's got to be some part of her that feels like my mother left me for this greater mission. What is that going to do to my daughter?
Yeah. I mean, June turned out pretty good.
But was that in spite of or because of? We don't know.
Well, I think that's what she says to her.
Yeah.
She says to her mom, she's like, this is what you taught me. You taught me to go out there and you taught me to fight for us. Mm-hmm. There is no future and there is no freedom if we don't fight for it. So I think that it doesn't matter. I don't think she has a choice. I think that's what she comes to sort of realize, is that like, if she wants there to be a place for her daughters to be free, this is what she has to do. But I was going to say about the cloak burning, like, I think for me, the finale is in two parts. And like The first half is up to the cloak burning, and that's her saying goodbye to the past. And then after she burns the cloak starts the second half, which is now kind of entering the future. So it's like she needs to, even though it's only symbolic, it's like she needs to like do that in order to go, that's the past now, that's done. I've said goodbye to my friends. I've said goodbye to Emily. I've done for now, like this is, and now I'm going to move into like, what's the next chapter of my life? And she doesn't know yet. And then it's sort of presented to her.
I'm imagining, correct me if I'm wrong, please, but I'm imagining that the scene with Emily may have been kept from a lot of people in the show, that maybe that was like a secret. When you're working on a finale like this, how did you determine what information everybody should have and what information they shouldn't?
We had so many conversations about it. It was just so important to us to try to keep certain things to, but we don't usually do that. Like, so we had to like install a new system and sort of like work out what is that system. And we worked it out like from the beginning. And so by the end, we kind of had it down. I was the sort of keeper of the like, because I'm the strictest. I'm the one who is the most strict about it, basically is the only way to put it. Like, I'm the one who was like, you have to really prove to me that you need to see this script in order to do your job. So there were a fair amount of people that had it. Like, a lot of people on our crew had it because obviously they had to do their jobs. But I definitely was pretty strict about who got to see it. And then there was a whole system of like, hard copy was very, very rare. There was like if you had like you were on a list if you were approved for a PDF, you were on a list if you were approved for a link only. So a read only draft meant that you got a link, right? And you could go on and then it disappears. And then there was also a read only draft that was redacted. So you would do like, where like there was like no one ever, very, very few people saw the final scene.
Okay.
Because there's just
no one needed to see it except for like you and then your DP and like
production designer and like various people like that. But like, that was it. No one else, none of the other cast got to see it.
Because you've said a couple of times, like some of these things you just do, they just like kind of come naturally. Is there anything you feel like can be taken from what you've done here to how you want to do your next show? Whether it's like, I never want to do something again because I did it the way I wanted to on The Handmaid's Tale.
Right.
Or the opposite of like, I love doing something this way, so I will continue.
The thing that I would take, the thing that I want to do again, that I want to take from Handmaids is how involved I was in Handmaids. So from the beginning, it wasn't even by design. It just happened this way that I was very, very involved from the very, very beginning as a producer. And then that just continued and grew and grew and grew until I became more and more enmeshed in the life of this show. It was a 365-day-a-year job, with the prep, the production, the post, and then marketing, PR, preparing for the next season, the scripts for the next season, blah, blah, blah. So it never ended for about 9 years. That I loved. I don't think I could do anything different now. Like, I have to do it that way. The one that I feel like I would change is I do want to make something that is even more entertaining and more hopeful. Okay. And more, I don't know if fun's the right word, but I do think that there is a world where I can kind of have my cake and eat it too. And it's very difficult to have certain kind of levity on The Handmaid's Tale. It's just inappropriate and doesn't make sense. And people would be like mad at us if we did it. So I do look forward to, I think, on my next show, which I am looking at something, having a little bit more time for some fun on it.